Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Character Dive, a show where we analyze characters from various sources of media. Let's go! You want to hear something interesting? This year, that being 2023, would mark the first time that I've played Final Fantasy VII. Not sure why it took me so long, but I'm glad I did. Both the story and the characters are amazing, making it an instant favorite of mine. While playing through the various entries of this series, I knew there was going to be characters that I'd like to do episodes on. And let me tell you, I've struck gold, as we have a bunch of characters who are very questionable in nature. I'm looking at you, Hojo. For this episode, we're going to look at the villain who shook the world with his iconic appearance and iconic theme, which is still sung by the fans today. I present to you, Sephiroth. Sephiroth, the one-winged angel, the man in black. This iconic character is the most memorable antagonist of Final Fantasy VII. Let's be real here, who doesn't like Sephiroth? Now I don't know about you, but this guy is imposing in almost every aspect. The height, the voice, the attire, the pack. That pack. He checks all the boxes. Also, can't forget about that sword. It's pretty big. What is the goal that Sephiroth desires, you may wonder? He claims that humanity has taken the planet away from a higher being named JENOVA, who he believes to be his mother. There's a lot to unpack in this episode, so hang tight and enjoy the ride. Sephiroth's life was put on a bizarre path right from the moment he was born. Professor Hojo used him as a part of an experiment called the JENOVA Project, while he was still in his mother's womb. What's the JENOVA Project, you ask? This was a term used for experiments that used JENOVA's cells. Who's JENOVA? Well, to sum it up short, JENOVA is a being that was discovered 2,000 years prior to the story. Fast forward to Sephiroth's adulthood, he's made a name for himself amongst the military group Soldier with his incredible skills. Sephiroth was widely respected and was the example for everyone to follow, including Cloud, who looked up to him as a hero. Indeed, Sephiroth was a charismatic and decent man who looked out for his teammates. These were simple times for Sephiroth. Unfortunately, the day would come when Sephiroth is informed of the unsettling truth about his birth, which takes his life down a dark and frightening path. During a visit to Mount Nibble, Sephiroth begins to question what he is, seeing creatures that are referred to as monsters within the containment chambers around him sparked the curiosity. He knew from the start that he was created from JENOVA's cells, but now seeing it all in front of him, he wonders if he is the same as these monsters. Now let's pause for a moment. This is shown in Final Fantasy Crisis Core, which was released a decade after Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 1. This would be the first time we see Sephiroth in a vulnerable state. Yes, there is a cutscene of this in the original Final Fantasy VII, but the low-poly character models don't show as much expression as the cutscenes within Crisis Core. Around this time, Genesis walks in and confirms Sephiroth's belief by calling him a monster. Not sure why Genesis would do this. I mean, isn't he your friend? Sephiroth was worried about you when you got hurt. I mean, the least you could do is give him some sympathy. He later finds himself in a library of the Nibelheim mansion, where he wished to be alone, reading countless documents without rest until he finds the truth of what he truly is. Now put yourself in this scenario for a moment. You hear something about your birth that you were never informed about, information about yourself that has been deliberately kept away from you, but an organization in which you work for has access to it. Wouldn't you try everything to find the root to why this may be? In Sephiroth's case, he's obsessed with finding the answer to the point where he can't even sleep until he finds it, searching for nearly a week. The stress of the unsettling news, combined with the lack of sleep, is enough to drive anyone mental. To come to think of it, he was probably starving himself in the process. Yo, somebody get this man a Snickers. Soon enough, Sephiroth would connect the dots and come to the conclusion that he was born with a bigger purpose. At the same time, Sephiroth is angered at the fact that his quote-unquote mother, JENOVA, was being used for such blasphemous experiments. Now this man goes on an absolute rampage as he burns down the entire village of Nibelheim. When he returns to Mount Nibel, he continues his rampage. He knocks out my man Zack, and he wrecks Tifa by throwing her down the stairs. Cloud runs up in there and tries to put a stop to him. Not gonna lie, Sephiroth had him in the first half, but Cloud held on. He turned the tables and swings Sephiroth off the edge and drops him. And yes, he died. You know what? That's actually kinda sad. He had so much going for himself, and it all just gets stripped away because he lost control of his sanity. Now I need to give a bit of clarification on this. Sephiroth thought it was just a coincidence that his mother shared the same name as this being. It was only after doing his research where he came to the conclusion of JENOVA being his mother. Unfortunately, this turned out to be false, as he only contained JENOVA's cells. So who is his mother? That would be Lucretia Crescent, a scientist who worked alongside Hojo. You might be wondering, why would Hojo perform such a blasphemous experiment on this woman while she's bearing a child? Well, because he's the one that impregnated her. That's right, Professor Hojo is Sephiroth's biological father. Imagine having someone this fucked up as your daddy. Shit, man. Well, all of that was from Crisis Core, so let's talk about the main entry in the series. Before Sephiroth makes his official appearance, we get little hints and foreshadowings of who he is. Let's start with the laboratory in the Shinra building. We see an empty specimen tank with a trail of blood, which leads to the top of the Shinra building. Now this is quite the interesting foreshadowing, as it would lead the audience to believe that he's some sort of monster. This is technically true, although he has the form of a human. When Cloud and the party reach the top of the Shinra building, we see a deceased President Shinra, who is impaled by Sephiroth's blade. Prior to this, and a few times afterwards, Cloud has hallucinations involving Sephiroth. It's clear that Sephiroth has left a heavy mark on Cloud's conscience. But hold on a minute, wasn't Sephiroth killed? Allow me to clarify. The Sephiroth we see in the beginning portion of the original Final Fantasy VII is actually a part of JENOVA, which has taken on both Sephiroth's form and conscience. It's not until later on in the game when Sephiroth is revived. So technically it's a clone of Sephiroth. We'll get to that in a moment. While we're on the topic, let's talk about a small detail within the trailer of the upcoming Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Sephiroth says this line of dialogue.
They say she's a monster, that she can peer inside you, into the very depths of your soul, that she can become those you hate, those you fear, those you love.
It's interesting, because if you look at Cloud's relationship with Sephiroth, he falls under all three categories. I'd like to dig deeper into this concept, but I am going to be doing an analysis video on Cloud, so I'll save it for then. Back to Sephiroth. As we progress through the game, we could see that he has some sort of an attachment to Cloud, seeing how Cloud is very easy to manipulate. The scenes involving Sephiroth within the Temple of the Ancients has some very interesting imagery, with him walking across the screen in the form of a jump scare and him teleporting across the room. We could see Sephiroth enjoying himself as he successfully yields the results of his plan. While he continues to torment Cloud, he then speaks to him within a dream sequence, telling him that Aerith would pose as a problem. We then find ourselves at one of the most heartbreaking scenes in the entire game. I'm gonna be real honest, I was pretty fucking pissed when Sephiroth killed Aerith. While Cloud mourns Aerith's death, Sephiroth then taunts him with some pretty cruel dialogue. It's almost as if he's talking to the player. Interesting. He tells Cloud not to get emotional, but the whole reason we're at this point is because Sephiroth was the one that couldn't control his emotions. It is questionable why Sephiroth would be tormenting Cloud up until this point, but I think I know why. It's highly possible that Sephiroth wants revenge against Cloud for what happened back in Nibelheim. Think about it for a second. At the time, Sephiroth was a first-class soldier, whereas Cloud didn't make it into soldier, but yet he managed to bring an end to Sephiroth's life. The thoughts of being brought down by a low-ranked soldier probably lingered through his mind while he was in the live stream. It's a stretch, but I wouldn't put it past him. As the story progresses, we get to a point where the real Sephiroth is resurrected. After fighting against Shenra and the weapons, Cloud and the party finally get to have their battle against Sephiroth at the Northern Cave. After a fierce battle, Sephiroth meets his end for the second time. Unfortunately, this wouldn't be the last time Cloud sees Sephiroth, as they battle each other for the third time in Advent Children. It's a good movie, by the way. You should give it a watch. Speaking of Advent Children, we gotta talk about that fight between Cloud and Sephiroth. The fight looked kinda equal at first, but then Sephiroth started shanking the shit out of Cloud. It was relentless, man. I'm not praising him for it, mind you. Just an observation. Now then, let's have some fun. Let's take a look at the song One-Winged Angel. The song opens up with a deep pounding of strings, giving off a sense of urgency. It's then followed with a high set of strings, which sound very similar to the famous instrumentation from the film Psycho. Pretty fitting for Sephiroth, if you ask me. After the beautiful orchestra, the lyrics kick in. Here are the first set of vocals isolated on their own. The lyrics are sung in Latin. Here's the English translation. Burning inside with violent anger. Sephiroth. It's possible that this could be a slight reference to the massacre he caused on Nibelheim, as the flames represent the rage he felt finding out the truth of who he truly is. Here's the second set of isolated vocals. The English translation is fate, monstrous, and empty. From the point he found out who he truly was, he's caused nothing but destruction without purpose. The first set of vocals repeat once more. Around the final portion of the song, we get our last set of vocals. Veni, veni, venigas, ne memori facias. Gloriosa, generosa. Here's the English translation. Come, come, oh come. Don't let me die. The winged one of the lower reaches. He desperately wants to become one with the planet, so he can live on forever. Not sure if there's another way to explain that, but it does coincide with the lyrics. The term winged one of the lower reaches could be a reference to the fact that he's an angel resurrected from death. Remember, this is just an analysis. It may not be factual. You gotta give me some credit. You gotta love the work and detail Nomura put into this character. Amazing design, amazing theme, amazing all around. 10 out of 10. And that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. I'll see you next time.